So, welcome to the Animal Communication End of Life and Holistic Healing Conference. I'm Dr. Jeff Grognet, and with me is Joanne Yeoh. And Joanne is a devoted pet parent. She has 2 dogs and 1 cat. And she's also the author of the book Conversations with Companions, Mastering Communication with Your Pets. She teaches pet parents how to communicate with their animals and specializes in end-of-life communication. Joanne also mentors fellow animal communicators to build their confidence in guiding clients through conversations around aging, illness, and transition. That kind of ties in with this conference too. And her mission is to honor the voice of the animals and deepen the bond between pets and their people, especially when it matters the most. So welcome, Joanne.
Thank you, Jeff. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's great. And for those of you that are wondering, I'm in Canada, and Joanne is on the Isle of Man,
That's correct.
which is 1/3 of the way around the world. There we go. Okay, so the thing is, everyone has a different story on this. What brought you into the world of animal communication?
Well, we're looking at around the time of 2016. I feel old saying that, but around 2016, I discovered a video on YouTube, and it astounded me because it was the story of the Black Panther with an animal communicator and how she helped this Black Panther to really settle into his environment, whereas before, when he was actually rescued at the sanctuary, they couldn't go near him. And it was almost the simplicity of the way the demonstration of how the communication took place that really caught my eye. And around that time, I also had my dog Donnie, who was a Bichon that had many kind of ailments and behavioral misdemeanors, and I was looking for something to understand him better. So that was really how my path, went into or discovered animal communication before I realized after kind of pouring myself into it that I really, really wanted to do this to help other people as well.
Yeah, no, that's the key. You're able to move into it, do it.
Yes.
And then you got this idea, and the main thing is, like, tell me about your early communication efforts. Were they simple, like bingo, I got the answer from Fred, or a bit more complicated than that?
It's a huge range. I think I have to say that animal communication is probably one of the most challenging as well as fascinating work that I've ever done. And when I went into animal communication, I genuinely thought it was going to be really simple, like just ask them what their favorite toy is, or why are they scratching so much, or or even just explaining things to them. Can you not pee on my bed anymore? And that it would just change everything. So I kind of went in with that, you know, understanding or hope, perhaps hope. And along the path, what I wanted to do was I really wanted to be credible with the way that I practice. So when I was a student, I set myself a target of doing 100 case studies. And as a result of offering my kind of case study, out to whoever wanted to take on me as a kind of a student thing, I came across so many different requests. And the questions that came through, some were really general, like, is my dog happy? But some were really specific, especially where there's concerns or worries when it came to health. And it was actually through those 100 case studies that I started to see that there were also people asking questions about end of life, like, tell me, is it time? Tell me if my cat has had enough. Tell me if my dog no longer wants to keep going. Tell me if my horse is suffering. And when I started animal communication, I had no idea that it would take me down this path of people asking these incredibly sensitive, but also vulnerable questions. So that's really what caught my interest too, was this was an aspect that I thought I could help people if at that time, I thought all I had to do was ask the animal those questions. Have you had enough? Is it time? And I had many, many various results. Sometimes I might get a communication from an animal that's so clear, and other times I really felt like I was kind of second guessing, and that didn't sit right with me. But in many ways, the parts that or the experiences that didn't sit quite well with me was the beginning of my own education in exploring how to support animals with end of life conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you've had a lot of experience in that. And so one of the things that we talked about you bringing in was you called it the three mistakes that people make with end
Yeah.
of life communications. So let's dive into that. What's number one?
Well, let me just clarify the word mistake because it always feels so judgmental and so critical. But I call them mistakes because I made them. And mistakes come from assumptions. Mistake comes from not really knowing what you don't know at that time. But over the years, I realized I was making those mistakes. Plus, I had the privilege and opportunity to work with other clients and students when I went into teaching that I was seeing similar patterns in the way that we approach our animals, particularly when we want to talk about end of life. So I call them mistakes because, like anything, if we stop making those mistakes, we're actually going to then get better results. So I just wanted to clarify the word mistakes.
Yeah.
The first one can
Okay.
sound a little, I was just gonna say the first mistake can sound a little kind of contradictory because I say don't rely on intuition alone. And that might sound a bit odd because animal communication is so much about our intuition, is so much about our intuitive senses, the way that we connect with our animals, the way that we bond with them. But what I also notice is that so many of us, when we're communicating with our own animals, often will say something like, but I'm too close to them. I could be emotionally involved. What if I'm wrong? I intuitively feel this, but what if I'm wrong because I'm so stressed? I mean, end of life is a really exhausting time. And also, it brings up so many of our own fears about losing our pets. So I realized that what we were doing was relying totally on intuition to give us an answer so that we could make an informed decision. And I realized that what we needed was more than intuition. We did know we do need intuition, but we also need information. We also needed knowledge. So if you have knowledge, you can then use your intuition to choose or decide how you're going to ask your animals those questions. So let me give just one example. Often I can get a client that will message me and they're in a crisis and they're a panic, and there's usually late evening or night. My dog is just panting and just pacing and just cannot settle. Is it time? Has he had enough? And they might say, and intuitively you might feel, yes, it must be because they are just appearing as if they're suffering, and all the emotions and the sensations that you connect with them in that moment really, really tells you that this is not a good way to be and not to allow them to suffer.
Yeah.
But we also know the story that they can be like that in the night, and in the morning they bounce back. They want to go for a walk. So the more stories I hear about that, it made me realize that intuition is something about in that moment. So intuitively in that moment, you could be right that your dog is really exhausted and might say, this is too much for me. But when you have the knowledge that it can occur where end of life is not a straight line, that you then say, I'm going to give it time. It gives you the confidence to give it time. And then intuitively, you can check, is it okay to give it time? So that's what I mean about don't rely just on intuition.
Yeah. I can see that is, in other words, don't start second guessing.
Yes,
Yeah,
because without information, you will be second guessing.
yeah,
The intuition comes in really to kind of double check how you feel about the information, because information can be that just because it's knowledge doesn't necessarily mean intuitively it's the right decision. So we know that we can tell somebody can tell us that, oh, that's, is logical that you should move to this place, but intuitively you might go, I'm not sure about that, and then it allows you to just really go inwards to connect with what it is that doesn't feel right. But if you don't really have the information about that, that location, then you can't really make an intuitive guess. It will feel like second guessing. Oh, it just doesn't feel right that I moved there. So I'm a great believer in really bringing those two together, intuition and information.
sounds good. Yeah, and though so, but that's like I say, that's the first step, first mistook that you're talking about.
And
Okay.
I've made many, so I'm only down to three that I'm sharing with you.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of this is one thing. Whenever you get into animal communication, you start making assumptions and you're second guessing all the time. And then the next thing is, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. And that is, it's very easy to get on that wagon that I can't believe anything I'm hearing.
Yeah. And that is one of the biggest struggle that I had, as well as all the people that I help who come to me. They might have even done 2-year courses and they can still say, I don't know if that's me or is it the animal or it feels like
Yeah,
I'm second guessing,
exactly.
or it's something that I would think of. So if it's me thinking that, then how do I know it's the animal? So there's so much around that.
Yes.
Um, but
There,
yeah, so
yeah, there's
mm,
there was one there's one personal story. We had 1.5 cats, and there was one of them peeing on the kitchen counter. We
mm,
thought we knew who it was, okay? And we had two brothers, and they were a team, right? I mean, all the way through, And it was so funny because I took an animal communication class, and one of the things I tried doing was, okay, guys, why, who's peeing and why are you doing it, right? It sound to me it was a really simple question, but good
mhm.
luck. And so I tried, and I got nothing. I got nothing at all from these guys. Every time I looked at them, I was just smiling and laughing because they're just having fun, right? And so then we got I call it a real animal communicator to talk to them. And it was a client of ours at the vet hospital. And this is the best part. She clued into these guys, and the one she found out who was doing it immediately. That was Hobbs. His brother was Calvin, and Hobbs was doing it. And she said, "Okay, we need to talk about this." And his words back to her were, "I don't have time."
Perfect reply.
Okay. So it's kind of like, okay, and it was like, and then finally she asked him, why do you do it? It's fun.
Mm, yeah.
Oh, we're dead. You know? So,
Yes,
so, so
there comes a point when you have to really be good with your negotiation skills.
exactly. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, let's move on to number two.
Number two, I will say that we do make the assumption that when we ask our animals a question, they will just give us a clear answer back. I mean, you've just given us the perfect kind of scenario there, so you've experienced it. I think it's important for anyone who is communicating with animals not to feel that they can't say that they didn't get anything from the animal. I think that's something that's really important because there's always a reason. But the other thing that we do expect animals to do is answer us immediately. So we tend to want to ask them a question and for them to go yes or no. So within the context of animal communication and end of life, that is one also of the biggest mistakes because during the time when you as the caregiver is at that stage where you're thinking, because we worry that either we're holding on to our pets for too long or we could be giving up on them too soon. So we hold those dilemmas. So often what we do is we will say to our animals, is it time? And we wait for them to give us a yes or a no. And I was doing that in my early years of animal communication when I was wanting to help my clients who were coming to me. And in many ways, I was kind of taught that whatever questions your client wants you to ask your animal, you ask it. And because I'm an animal communicator, the animal's going to talk to me. So I would just say to the animal, my client's animal, is it time? And this was really where things started to get, like I say, where it wasn't consistent. And then I realized that it wasn't just end of life, it can be any other questions that's probably more of a complex topic, more to do with um, problems from the human perspective that we have the problem or we have a problem with their behavior. And we will say, why do you do that? Or can you tell me the reason? But like I say, within the context of end of life, often we say, have you had enough? And we want them to go yes or no. Is it time? We want them to go yes or no. And I'm saying to you that there's so much more to it. So move away from wanting to ask your animal, is it time? Because often I find that that is an incomplete question. So we could move into, is it time for you to stop fighting? Is it time for you to begin accepting that it's for us to do some energy work to release our attachment, to each other? And if you think about how I've given those two extended questions, what a difference in terms of the conversation you're going to have with your animal. If you ask a question, have you had enough? I say extend the question. Have you had enough of what? Have you had enough of being almost force fed because I'm trying to keep your weight up? Have you had enough of the medications that you're taking because it's making you sick? Have you had enough of me just telling you that I can't live without you? So it's quite a end of life really means we have to be honest about what's going on in the exchange.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean about not expecting your animals to just give you a yes or no answer, because more often than not, that's where you're going to start getting confused because you're not getting a clear answer. And then you're going to think, I can't do this. I'm too stressed. My animal doesn't want to talk to me. And I'm here to say your animal really wants to talk to you, but they need a different way that you approach them so they can answer more fully.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And when you're dealing, well, think of if you ask a person that question, are
Mm,
you ready to go? Are you finished? Is it your time? And there's so much finality to it,
mm.
right? Whereas if you if you break it, and what I see you doing is breaking it down a little bit, and that is, hey, have you had enough of the medications? Do you want me to stop that?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, simple things, and that's a probably a much easier answer to come up with.
Yeah, it's easier to connect with where you're at, your experience of something. And the other thing that I really had to kind of almost face up to was that when we're asking, is it time? We're often referring to euthanasia. And I have over the years more and more and more, and I'm really wanting to bring this, to as many pet parents that I offer my teachings to, is that animals that I've communicated with and my own animals wouldn't say, yes, it's time for euthanasia, because the concept of euthanasia is a human offering. It's not something that's natural to the animal. So we want to ask our animals really more questions around, is it almost like, have you had enough of being exhausted, or what level of exhaustion are you feeling? Have you completely withdrawn from any enjoyment that you're able to experience? Those questions will then help us to know, is it time? So really what I'm saying here in many ways is the decision, is it time? It is a collaboration between your animal and yourself, but for us to actually make that decision ultimately has to be us. And the communication with your animal is saying, because you're sharing sensations of such exhaustion, of the fact that you no longer look forward to the day, that you don't even have an emotional connection with your family or your surroundings anymore. This is the decision I'm going to make to take care of you.
Yeah. And the thing, if everyone's watching all the other speakers in this conference, you're going to find that there's a number of them that are, I won't say advocating, but saying that the possibility of natural death is an option. Okay. And that's not something that many veterinarians talk about. And
Mhm.
so because of that, it's something that's quite often foreign to what the veterinarian may be recommending to you. And veterinarians will quite often go down I call it the dark alley, and start telling you that, oh, with that disease, we could see, and they'll list all the bad things that could happen, which can be scary. Okay. But the main thing is a lot of them are quite rare.
Yeah.
And so because of that, going natural is not something that should be feared. It's something
Mm.
you need to get information on for the disease that your particular friend has. And then you can be settled in your own mind that it's a possibility. And if the pet says, as in, I don't want to go in to the hospital, or have the vet visit, whatever, it's kind of like, oh, okay, so we're gonna do this together.
Yeah.
So
So important what you've
yeah,
just brought up, honestly, because when I started having animals in my life, I I I genuinely thought and believed that the only way they could die was through euthanasia. I wasn't even aware that there was such a thing as natural death. And in fact, if somebody had said it to me, I would have immediately, oh, isn't that cruel? Just leaving them to die. And even through my early years of being a professional animal communicator, when I look back now, because I didn't know about natural death or hospice death, let's call it, or hospice end of life, I wasn't offering the animal that option because my question was just what their guardian was saying, which is it time, in brackets, for euthanasia? So it also explained why there were times when I didn't get an answer from the animal. So all of that, I'm so grateful for just really being honest with myself for those times when it didn't feel, something didn't sit right with me with the way that I was approaching an animal about questions around their end of life. So it's because of all those years and because of my own experience, because I had my first experience with my dog with euthanasia, and because I started to learn about natural death and hospice end of life, I gave my dog that option, and it opened up a conversation I had not envisaged. But unfortunately, but it ties in with what you said there, Jeff. I wasn't in a position because I didn't have the support to offer him the natural death. So we did go down the euthanasia route. But for me, I can be at peace knowing that I had animal communication with him to talk it through. Things are different now. I'm currently supporting my 16 and a half year old Pomeranian through a hospice end of life process. So it is for us as communicators, if we are helping animals about end of life, this is where I'm talking about. We need the information, and then we can use our intuition and our telepathy and our animal communication to really bring that fuller conversation.
yeah. And that leads into your number three, and
Yes.
and that is we need to get information.
Yeah.
But the mistake is
The mistake is the minute we either realize our animal has hit a certain age, and then you have it combined, they hit a certain age and they start limping, or they get a terminal diagnosis, then everything is all about death. Is it time? As in, when will they die? What's the prognosis? And what we forget is they're still living. And often there's so much crisis and panic. And I feel really privileged now to be in a position whereby, because I've got more years behind me and experiences and knowledge, I have clients that will ring me and they're literally at the vets. They just taken their pet in for something that they thought that might be, oh, they're kind of not eating, they're sleeping a lot, and they take the dog or cat in, and then next thing they know, they've run some tests, and then the vet says, it's a terminal diagnosis. We need to put your pet down now. And often the guardian will listen to the vet because they will then tell them about, if you don't, your pet's going to suffer and it's going to end terribly and it's not going to be safe to take your pet home. Yes, in some cases, that's the thing, but we are not equipped to then ask more questions with the vet. So I've been able to help clients to say to the vet, can you tell me what kind of care my animal needs if I was to bring them home for 24 hours, for 48 hours? Because the act of saying goodbye isn't just important for the human, it's incredibly important for the animal. So if they're not
Mhm.
in that crisis stage, they're not bleeding, they're not in the middle of surgery with their guts hanging out, just to put it bluntly, but the animal is calm and the animal is quiet and all the signs are there that they are managing, give yourself some time. So our focus becomes so much on death. So even when you have been given a terminal diagnosis, often, and this has been my experience, they'll say to me, well, there's nothing we can do. Surgery's not part of it. Medication's not part of it. So come back when you're ready, basically to euthanize your dog.
Yeah.
And it could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 2 days. And what do you do in that in between time? We focus on death. So it's always asking the animal all about death. But I've learned
Yeah.
with my dog, where I had the terminal diagnosis and then I had that gap, he taught me to ask him about him living. He was still living. What did he continue to be able to enjoy? What was important for him? So do ask your animals that what
Yeah.
they're living until they're not living.
Yeah. The thing, like you say, I'm going to make a differentiation here between conventional veterinarians or conventional thinking veterinarians and the holistic approach. And that is when you get a diagnosis that, and where they say, the conventional guys, where they say, uh, you've got this cancer or whatever, and yeah, it's terminal, and quote, we can't do anything more. That is not true all the time. And that is, there are other things that you can move into. And this is what this conference is about. And that is, I've got speakers that are talking about all the other things that you can do with these guys. As in, yeah, oh yeah, I've got a horrible diagnosis, but I can take my friend home and I can do this and this and this. And we can do things. It could be just, I mean, something simple as doing Reiki, energy healing, whatever. It could be dietary therapies. It could be special supplements, whatever. But the point is, it's usually not the case when you're talking to a veterinarian who's holistically minded. The diagnosis does not mean the end. The diagnosis means that you can fine tune the care that you're giving.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And what I love about the role of animal communication is really connect with the character of your animal, really bring that to light because often, a client might say to me, well, I don't know what to do now. I know that he's not ready to go, but what kind of care do I give? How much, do I go straight down the chemo route, or do I go down the heavy duty kind of meds route, or does he not want any of that? What I do in animal communication is, again, not asking the animal, do you want treatment or do you want medication? Because that is really not their remit. So what I do is I ask them about what's important to them. I ask them about their kind of like their pain threshold. What's their discomfort tolerance? Because some animals are really, like, I'm gonna keep going. And I've had other animals that says, I don't like pain, I don't like discomfort, I like softness and coziness, and so it's so important through animal communication. I can get to know that animal. And this is where their likes and dislikes are so important. So it's through that, through them sharing about who they are and how they perceive, whether they want to fight, whether that's their character, or some are just so non-attached to their physical life. So they're like, I'm happy. My job is done. I just want peace. I don't want any interference. I don't want needles on my body. So that really helps us to make the right decision for that animal,
Yeah,
for their unique personality as well.
very, very much so. Yeah. And that's the key. Designing the care with
Mm.
that particular animal in mind, not what I think is best, you know, which will it'll always have a bearing. But the point is, you can make it better for your friend, right?
Yeah.
And so it can help through. But I've got other speakers talking about, as in when is the end in terms of soul contracts,
Mm.
all that type of thing, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot more involved here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it's because we acknowledge that they're sentient beings. So with feelings, with thoughts, with opinions, and when I ask an animal what their innermost priorities are, that's really very revealing, because they'll say, oh, yes, I can tolerate discomfort because I want to be, with my family a lot longer. And you can get another animal that says, oh, when my ability to enjoy my day-to-day activities are no longer something that I can uh, take part in, then I release my attachment to my physical body. So it's so amazing that we can actually connect with animals to find out about their innermost priorities through animal communication.
Mhm. And that gives us a lot of peace.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because that's all we want at the end of the day. We want to know that when we look back at how we took care of our animals, it's not just about we did everything we could, but more about, was it all the way a collaboration? Was it all the way a discussion? Was it all the way where
Mhm.
there's been informed choices and also support? Is it all the way where you were able to hear and listen to your animal without you panicking and thinking you have to fix it? But more often than not, our animals are so good at supporting us through our grieving process before they die. If we are open to that, because our grief starts the minute we get the terminal diagnosis, or the grief starts the minute we start to see their muzzle go white, and they might lose their appetite. So it's very subtle. So our grieving process is already started. And I find that when animals are in their latter part of their end of life, they become our guardians. The roles switch. It's for us to be open to that and be aware of that. And that is just the most amazing relationship that you can have with your animal at the end of life. And it gives them purpose. I've had animals that feel so empowered because they go, I can really help my mom and dad to work through their grief while I'm with them. And that gives them that purpose too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely does. Yeah. In other
Mhm.
words, I'm not finished yet, Mom.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So
And death isn't always quick. We imagine that. We imagine that you get a terminal diagnosis and then everything's going to almost like explode. But actually, there are different types. I'm sure, that your other speakers will talk about. But I've helped clients whereby they've had a terminal diagnosis, they booked the euthanasia for 2 days, so that they could have time. And after a while, when I say to the animal, "How are you feeling?" Share sensations with me. They're like, "I feel fine. I'm not struggling. I'm not in pain. I can eat and I can still run." And 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, I then get my client said, almost like they're guilty. When is it going to happen? Because the animal's just showing that not all deaths are in a crisis or straight away. So there's
that's right.
actually time. There's time.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not very often we actually have a case where we've got, well, about the only ones at all really. You've got a bleeding tumor in the belly, the animal's dog is critical, and we've got to do surgery now, or bloat. We got to do surgery now, right? And that's that's when your butt is against the wall. You've got to say, okay, or do it not. And sometimes, unfortunately, finances come in there and all kinds of different factors, you know. But most of the time, when you get something, and when we're talking about a diagnosis, it's a case of, oh, this is the diagnosis. Okay, I'm going home now.
Mm.
I'm going to get working on this. Okay. And the other thing I've had another animal communicator that dovetails into this, and that is her message was start communicating now.
Yeah.
Don't wait till the last week, right? So
Mhm.
and so that's another facet on this. But you're right. The getting the diagnosis, that unfortunately for some people, the diagnosis is the end.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's not. It's something where you can say, okay, now what do we do? And that's when you want to enroll your pet in the collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree with that. Okay. And so the thing is, this is something that you've been teaching for quite a while, Joanne, and that is you're helping people through this
Mm.
transition, using your skills, but also their skills,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so but the and you have courses set up and all that wonderful stuff, but also you've got something where people can start this journey, a little bit of a gift on that.
Yes, I'm really passionate about encouraging and supporting pet parents to communicate with their own animals. Um, when I started, and hopefully it's not as much these days as it was a few years back, where we kind of brought on the belief that it was easier to communicate with other people's animals than it is to communicate with our own. We come up with lots of reasons like we're too close to them, or my animals don't want to talk to me, they don't have time for me, kind of thing. So I set off, I think it was probably about 2020, 2019, 2020, to debunk that. I said, because I had the same problem with my dog. I used to say to him, "You're bad for business because I can't get through to you." And then he taught me it's not that I'm not communicating with you. You're just not opening up the dialogue. You're just straight away asking me, how to fix me, basically. So I'm a real passionate when it comes to saying to people, you don't have to be a professional animal communicator. If you're a pet parent, that's why we found animal communication. It's more often than not, come from a place where we were struggling with something with our own animals and we want to understand them better.
Yeah,
So my course that I'd like to offer your audience is a 3-day course to help pet parents feel confident in communicating with their own pet.
fantastic. Yeah. And the main thing is doing any communication, you need to have a guide on what you should be doing. And when you read books on it, the idea is, well, sit back, close your eyes, focus on in my heartbeat, your breathing, whatever you're doing, and the messages will just pour in. And Well, that never worked for me. It just
Well,
didn't.
we're kindred spirits then. It can happen,
Yeah,
it
it
doesn't
can.
mean like it never happens. It can happen, but then because it can happen, we think that's how it needs to be all the time. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't even have to be through meditation. There's so many other ways to open yourself up to the intuitive senses, which to me is the ABC of animal communication.
Yeah.
So I focus on that a lot. And in the 3 day course, I talk about something along the lines of the three elements that are crucial. And most of the time, we kind of hang in one element, which is more the telepathy, the more psychic element. But if you want to dialogue with your animal, particularly your own, look at the way that you're approaching them with the questions. If your agenda is to fix them, then your conversation is going to be a bit stunted. So I show you in this course how to really open up the dialogue, how to really
Mhm.
come from wanting to know and be curious about your pet's perspective rather than I want to come in here and just want to get rid of the fact that you bark at the postman all the time because suddenly, that's going to shut the communication channels down. So I teach people how to open up the communication channels.
Mhm. Yeah. And don't let your agenda get in the way.
Yeah. Or just be aware. I think we can't stop it. We're human beings. That's our failing. So
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. We have to accept that we'll always have an agenda. You might think I'm an animal communicator. So with my own animals, I'm going to be agenda free. So, but what I do is I catch myself. Okay, John, you just got an agenda and they can smell it from afar. So that's really what it is.
I like I like that. Even though you're going through the airwaves or whatever waves we were talking, they can smell it. I love it. I love that. That's great. Okay. Anyway, thank you for coming on board, Joanne.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
this has been a lot of fun, and people can sort of get some ideas on the sorry, I call them the bumps in the road that can screw you up in terms of doing your communication, but also through if everyone sign up for Joanne's gift there, that'll get you started down the journey, right? And put it this way, it's fun.
Yes,
Okay,
make it fun.
yeah.
There's going to be serious topics, of course, but animal communication isn't just about serious topics. You
Hmm.
can inject an element of fun, but curiosity will get you there.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for being here, and thank you everyone for watching, and we'll plan on seeing you in the next webinar.